Italy, a founding member of the European Union, is taking steps to strengthen its ties with China, potentially diverging from the positions of its closest European allies. What does this mean for the EU's future? Is Italy charting a separate course at the risk of European unity? To understand, let's rewind. Not long ago, the EU imposed tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, citing unfair subsidies. China's response wasn't just a simple economic sanction. It was a calculated counterstrike targeting sensitive industries and regions, including Italy's key export markets. China struck Europe where it hurt most, revealing cracks within the EU. Feeling the impact of China's precise targeting, Italy began reconsidering its stance. Could working with Beijing better serve Italy's interests than strictly aligning with Brussels? For Italy, this debate carries real-world consequences, especially for its economy. Agriculture, one of Italy's key sectors, serves as a prime example. In 2022, Italy exported over $4 billion worth of agricultural products to China, including olive oil and wine. If that access were suddenly cut off, it would be devastating for Italian farmers. China's message was clear: partner with us, and your economic interests will be safeguarded. Many Italian farmers, already wary of the EU's hardline approach, have begun questioning whether Brussels truly represents their needs. Recent reports indicate that nearly 65% of Italy's agricultural exports rely on stable trade relations with China. For policymakers in Rome, this growing discontent among farmers is impossible to ignore. So why is Italy willing to challenge EU norms to deepen ties with China? Italian leaders see an opportunity. The EU's collective decision-making often moves slowly, stalling reforms that could benefit Italy's economy. By engaging directly with China, Italy hopes to bypass these delays and secure faster economic gains. Italy's foreign minister recently emphasized that the country is focused on forging an independent economic future while maintaining its alliances. This signals a shift. Italy is positioning itself as a leader within the EU, willing to prioritize its own economic needs, even if it disrupts broader EU strategies. China, in turn, offers more than just trade opportunities. Recent agreements aim to expand collaboration in green energy, technology, and manufacturing. These deals could boost Italian exports to China by 15% within 3 years, creating jobs and attracting investments. Italy is betting on a stronger, more diversified economy through this partnership. However, Italy's relationship with China isn't new. Historical ties date back centuries, starting with Marco Polo's travels and a legacy of mutual exchange. Today, Italy is reviving this connection, positioning itself as a cultural and economic gateway between Europe and Asia. Italy's pivot is stirring tension in Brussels, where a unified foreign policy is a cornerstone of the EU. Italy's independent approach highlights a growing divide. Polls indicate that other EU nations like Greece, Portugal, and Spain are also warming to closer ties with China. Could Italy's example inspire a broader shift within the EU? Italy's trade with China has already surged to $70 billion and continues to grow. The success of this partnership raises questions for Europe. If Italy can achieve significant economic benefits through direct ties with Beijing, what's stopping other nations? Yet this alignment with China risks further fragmentation within the EU. Brussels' pushback against Chinese imports, particularly in technology, could deepen divisions. Will Italy's independent path strengthen its economy at the cost of European unity? Only time will tell. Recently, the European Union imposed tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, citing unfair trade practices. However, there's a striking paradox in this move. Italy, with its robust automotive sector, could end up being one of the nations most adversely affected by these tariffs. Italian car manufacturers, particularly those in the luxury and electric vehicle segments, rely heavily on Chinese-sourced components and raw materials. Industry analysts warn that these tariffs might disrupt production chains, increase costs, and ultimately drive up prices for Italian consumers. For Italy, this isn't merely a policy challenge. It's an economic dilemma. The central question is whether Italy can afford to align with Brussels on this issue if it jeopardizes its automotive industry. But the stakes extend beyond cars. Which other Italian sectors could thrive with stronger ties to China, and which might struggle? Italy's economic relationship with China goes well beyond luxury vehicles. Key sectors such as fashion, agriculture, and higher education have flourished thanks to partnerships with China. Iconic Italian fashion brands, for example, are rapidly expanding their footprint in Chinese markets. According to Bloomberg, Italian luxury exports to China surged by 30% in 2023, driven by growing demand from China's burgeoning middle class for premium European goods. However, the benefits of this relationship are not universal. Small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, in Italy, especially those involved in local manufacturing, face stiff competition from lower-cost Chinese imports. For these businesses, deeper economic ties with China might bring increased challenges rather than opportunities. Public opinion on this issue is divided. The debate over closer ties with China resonates deeply with the Italian public, reflecting varied perspectives on the economic and political implications of such a partnership. Recent surveys reveal a divided nation. While 54% of Italians view stronger economic relations with China as a pragmatic step in a volatile global economy, others express concerns about becoming overly reliant on a global superpower. Italian leaders, aware of this divide, are proceeding cautiously. Public opinion will play a crucial role in shaping not only Italy's policies, but also the broader EU strategy. A new era of EU-China diplomacy. Italy's relationship with China is testing the boundaries of EU diplomacy. While the EU has traditionally sought a unified approach in its dealings with China, Italy is exploring a more independent path. This strategy reflects a blend of economic pragmatism and strategic autonomy. Dr. Federica Mogherini, a former EU foreign policy chief, described Italy's approach as a tightrope walk, balancing loyalty to EU principles with the pursuit of national interests. If Italy's model proves successful, it could encourage other EU nations to adopt similar bilateral relationships with China. This shift might redefine EU-China relations, potentially moving from a one-size-fits-all strategy to a more flexible, country-specific approach. Economic growth and green partnerships. Italy's engagement with China extends beyond trade to include sustainable growth. Recent agreements between Italian and Chinese firms aim to develop green technologies, such as solar and wind energy projects, expected to supply power to over 1 million Italian homes. These collaborations highlight a forward-looking aspect of the Italy-China partnership, focused on building a greener, more sustainable future. Challenges to EU unity and transatlantic relations. Italy's growing ties with China have not gone unnoticed by its EU partners or transatlantic allies. Some fear that Italy's independent stance could undermine the EU's unity. Former European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker once emphasized that the EU's strength lies in its solidarity. Italy's move could challenge this principle, raising questions about the future cohesion of the EU and its collective stance in global affairs. Italy's deviation from collective EU policy challenges the notion of unity, raising questions about the bloc's future cohesion. Moreover, Italy's pivot toward China subtly challenges U.S. influence in Europe. The United States has consistently urged its European allies to maintain a cautious and unified approach toward China. Italy's decision to forge its own path suggests that European nations may no longer feel bound to follow Washington's lead. A turning point in global power dynamics. Italy's strategy could signal a significant shift in global power dynamics. Traditionally, Europe has aligned with the West under U.S. influence. However, Italy's deepening ties with China hint at a more multipolar world where nations prioritize their own economic and strategic interests. If other EU nations follow Italy's example, it could fundamentally alter the balance of power, positioning China as a central partner in Europe. The road ahead. Italy's bold approach is being closely watched. If successful, it could set a precedent for other nations like Spain, Portugal, and Greece to explore similar partnerships with China. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz recently remarked that Europe must be open to diverse relationships that serve each member's interests. Italy's actions could indeed trigger a domino effect, reshaping EU-China relations and challenging the traditional EU model of collective decision-making. At the same time, this approach carries risks. Could prioritizing national interests over EU unity destabilize traditional alliances? Could it weaken the EU's collective voice on global issues? How will this affect the EU's relationship with its key ally, the United States? Conclusion: a gamble with global implications. Italy's decision to strengthen its ties with China represents a calculated gamble, one that could redefine alliances, reshape the EU's future, and alter global power dynamics. While some see opportunities, others see risks. Italy's independent strategy is undoubtedly bold, and the world is watching to see whether this gamble will pay off, inspire others, or lead to unforeseen consequences. Thanks for watching.